I'm leaving my boyfriend after he drunkenly confessed something to me last night. Our story didn't start with a grand romantic beginning, nor did it follow the familiar patterns of whirlwind love. Instead, it began as an almost unnoticed connection between two people who had been so badly hurt, so disillusioned with the idea of love that we didn't dare to believe in it anymore. Alex and I, both 29 at the time, were coming out of marriages that had left us in pieces. We had been introduced by mutual friends who, themselves, had gone through the waves of our heartbreaks, each wondering if there was anyone who could mend our spirits. Alex's marriage had ended in betrayal so deep that it had shaken him to the core. He discovered, after a long night spent alone while his wife was supposedly out with friends, that she was actually planning a life with someone else. A single message left open on her phone unraveled everything, revealing not just months of deception, but a full-blown escape plan. A secret apartment lease, plans to move across the country, and even conversations about which furniture she would take. For Alex, this betrayal was more than a broken promise. It was the collapse of a world he had fought to build. And then there was me, carrying the scars of my own shattered life. My husband had vanished suddenly, leaving behind a trail of debt, lies, and a cold emptiness that felt like it could never be filled. So, on that quiet evening, standing in the corner of a friend's backyard, Alex and I met, not with fireworks or instant romance, but with the hesitant, wounded recognition of kindred spirits. It was as if we each saw in the other a mirror of our own pain, our own lost dreams. I remember looking at him and thinking, he understands. And he did. We stood there for hours, neither of us wanting to be the first to break away, sharing stories of heartbreak as the sun set and night settled over us. From that moment on, we became inseparable, drawn together by a bond that felt both fragile and unbreakable. If this story touched you, and you're ready for more inspiring journeys, don't forget to subscribe. Your support means the world as I share more stories of resilience, love, and the beauty of starting over. And I want to hear from you. Have you ever had to rebuild after heartbreak? What lessons did you learn along the way? Share your story in the comments below. Let's build a community of hope and strength together. Your words could be the encouragement someone else needs. Those early days were quiet. We took long walks together, often without speaking, finding comfort simply in each other's presence. There was a depth to Alex's silence, a gentleness in the way he'd listen to my stories, nodding in understanding, his eyes clouded with his own unspoken memories. I still remember one autumn afternoon, sitting on a park bench with him, the leaves swirling around us, his hand warm in mine. He'd brought me a cup of coffee, black, no sugar, exactly how I liked it. Small gestures like that, tiny acts of thoughtfulness, became the building blocks of our love. As the months went by, our bond deepened. We didn't need grand declarations or grand plans. Our love was built on shared moments, the kind you don't always notice in the moment, but that settle into your soul. We'd spend weekends exploring little-known places, tiny bookstores hidden down narrow streets, deserted beaches where the only sounds were the waves crashing, and our laughter, old theaters showing black and white films, quiet museums that told the stories of lives long forgotten. Alex had a habit of finding places like that, spots where the world felt just a little bit more magical, where time seemed to stand still. In a small but symbolic way, we left our old lives behind and moved to a quaint, sleepy town nestled between a river and rolling hills, a place untouched by the chaos we had left behind. The town felt like it was out of a storybook, with cobbled streets, ivy-covered brick walls, and a main street lined with antique shops and cafes. Our favorite spot was a small cafe with an old, creaky floor and mismatched chairs. We'd spend hours there, him working on his cases, and me planning out projects for clients, sipping coffee and sharing knowing glances across the table. Alex threw himself into his job as a lawyer, working nearly 90 hours a week. I watched as he poured his energy into helping others, using his own scars as a source of empathy, a means of connecting with clients who were also grappling with their own heartbreaks and losses. Meanwhile, I traveled frequently for my work, consulting on design projects, finding inspiration in the varied architecture and styles of the places I visited. Our relationship felt secure, like a house built on a rock. We didn't feel the need for children. Our lives were full, our days rich with shared dreams and moments of peace. Then there was my brother Ryan. Ryan, 2 years older than me, was a puzzle, a free spirit who often found himself ensnared in the complexities of love. Since 2020, he had been in an on-again, off-again relationship with Sarah, a woman who matched his intensity but whose life, like his, was often tangled in complications. They had planned to marry in 2022, but called it off at the last minute, the pressure of commitment too much for either of them to bear. And yet, every time they broke up, they found themselves drawn back together, unable to fully let go. In November, they faced a new, unexpected challenge. Sarah discovered she was pregnant. They were terrified yet resolute, choosing to commit to building a family together. They bought a beautiful, old Victorian house at the edge of town, a place with tall windows, creaky wooden floors, and a sprawling backyard where they hoped their future child would one day play. Ryan threw himself into preparations, taking classes on parenting, learning to cook Sarah's favorite meals, even painting the nursery a soft yellow with whimsical animals drawn along the walls. And so, when the 4th of July rolled around, Ryan and Sarah invited us to their new home to celebrate. It was a small gathering, just family and a few close friends, but it was full of life, a celebration of new beginnings. They had spent days preparing, making dishes from old family recipes, setting up decorations, and ensuring everything was perfect. Alex and I arrived early, and I spent the afternoon helping Sarah in the kitchen, chatting and laughing as we worked, stealing glances at my newborn niece, who was peacefully sleeping in her cradle. Holding her, feeling the warmth of new life, was grounding. As evening fell, the party continued, laughter filling the air, conversations flowing as freely as the drinks. People were tipsy, happy, their voices mingling with the sound of music playing softly in the background. It felt like one of those perfect moments you want to bottle up and keep forever. As the night drew on, only a few of us remained by the fire. Alex, Ryan, Sarah, and a couple of close friends. We were relaxed, tipsy, a little hazy from the warmth of the fire and the comfort of each other's company. Then, out of nowhere, Alex turned to Sarah with a strange look in his eyes. "Remember when we used to hook up last year?" he said, his voice slurred but unmistakably clear. For a moment, time froze. His words lingered in the air, sharp and piercing, unraveling the reality I thought I knew. I stared at him, then at Sarah, her face pale, her eyes wide with shock and guilt. She stammered something, an apology maybe, but I couldn't hear it. My world had collapsed in that instant, my trust shattered beyond repair. I stood up, numb, my mind spinning as I tried to process what had just happened. Without a word, I walked away, leaving behind the man I had trusted with my heart, the people who had become my family. The drive home was a blur, filled with a silence so profound it felt suffocating. That night, my phone was flooded with messages, each one an attempt to explain, to apologize, to undo what had been done. Alex tried to say it was a mistake, a meaningless fling, but his words only made the betrayal more painful. Sarah confessed in a long, rambling text, recounting how they'd been together during one of the times I was away, a moment of weakness she called it. But none of it mattered. The damage was done, and I knew I could never look at either of them the same way again. The next morning, I packed my things, every piece of my life with Alex, and walked out the door. I took the truck I'd bought him, the gifts I'd given him, every reminder of our life together. I drove away from the town that had been our home, leaving behind the ghosts of our love. I moved to a new town, a place where no one knew me, a place where I could start fresh. I found a little house near my best friends, a haven where I could rebuild myself. I found work that filled my days with purpose, and I grew close to my college best friend, Trey. Trey, who had always been there, the one friend who had seen me through every storm, became my anchor. Slowly, our friendship turned into something more, a quiet, gentle love that healed my heart in ways I hadn't thought possible. My new life unfolded in ways I couldn't have imagined. There, in that little town, surrounded by friends who felt more like family than the ones I had left behind, I discovered a freedom that I hadn't known in years. My little house, nestled on a quiet street lined with ancient trees and wildflowers, became my sanctuary. Mornings greeted me with the chirping of birds, sunlight streaming through the windows, and a sense of calm I hadn't felt in a long time. Each day was a gift, a reminder that I had survived, that I was building something new from the ashes of the life I left behind. In my new job, I found a place where my work was valued, where I was encouraged to grow. I threw myself into design projects that stretched my creativity, collaborating with people who shared my passion. I would often take my sketchbook to a small cafe downtown, a cozy spot with plants hanging from the ceiling, walls lined with books, and tables tucked into nooks that made you feel like you had your own little corner of the world. It was there that I spent hours sketching ideas, brainstorming projects, and watching the comings and goings of townsfolk who were slowly becoming familiar faces. There was an older man who came in every morning, ordering the same cup of tea and reading the newspaper from front to back. There was a young mother who brought her toddler, always dressed in bright colors, her laughter filling the room. Little by little, the people of this town became a part of my story. And then, there was Trey. Trey had been my friend since college, a constant in my life who had been there through all my ups and downs. He was the one person who never wavered, the one who always knew how to make me smile even in my darkest moments. We had shared so much over the years, midnight phone calls during college finals, spontaneous road trips to nowhere, long conversations over countless cups of coffee. He was my confidant, my rock, the person who had stood by me when I felt like my world was falling apart. As I began to heal, Trey became more than just a friend. He was there for me in ways I hadn't even realized I needed. We would spend evenings cooking together, experimenting with recipes we'd find online, laughing as we attempted to make pasta from scratch or baked cookies that always turned out a little too crispy around the edges. We'd have movie marathons, picking a theme and watching everything from old black and white classics to cheesy rom-coms. Every moment with him felt effortless, like slipping into a warm, comfortable space where I could be completely myself. It was during one of our late-night conversations, sitting on the floor of my living room surrounded by empty takeout containers and glasses of wine, that I realized how much he meant to me. We had been talking about everything and nothing, sharing childhood memories, debating the best way to make French toast, discussing our dreams and fears. He looked at me with an expression I hadn't seen before, a softness that took my breath away. In that moment, I knew that what we had was something deeper than friendship, something I couldn't ignore anymore. Our relationship blossomed slowly, naturally, like a flower unfurling in the morning sun. There was no rush, no pressure. We took our time, savoring each new step, each new discovery. He held my hand on our first official date, his fingers warm and reassuring in mine, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I felt safe, truly safe. When he kissed me, it was like the world faded away, leaving only us, two souls who had found each other amid the chaos. With Trey, I discovered a new kind of love, one built on trust, respect, and a profound understanding of who we both were. We didn't need to hide anything from each other. Our pasts, our flaws, our dreams were all laid bare. He knew about my failed marriage, the heartbreak that had nearly broken me, and he loved me not in spite of it, but because of it. He saw my scars, and instead of recoiling, he embraced them, understanding that they were part of the person I had become. Months passed, and our lives intertwined in ways that felt as natural as breathing. Trey would often stay over at my place, and we developed little routines that brought a quiet joy to each day. In the mornings, he would make coffee just the way I liked it, strong, with a hint of cinnamon. We'd have breakfast together, sometimes in comfortable silence, other times chatting about everything from our plans for the day to the latest book he was reading. Evenings were filled with laughter and conversation, with moments of shared silence that spoke volumes. We created a world within those four walls, a space that was ours alone, a place where we could be vulnerable and brave all at once. Our love grew, blossoming in the simplicity of everyday moments. On weekends, we'd go hiking on nearby trails, finding hidden paths and small streams where we'd sit and talk, or simply enjoy the peace of the woods around us. Trey had an eye for nature, pointing out different plants and birds, telling me little facts he'd picked up over the years. He'd bring his camera, capturing moments that felt almost magical, a ray of sunlight breaking through the trees, a butterfly resting on a flower, our laughter echoing in the quiet. One night, as we sat under a blanket of stars, he turned to me and said, "I think I've been waiting for this my whole life." His words hung in the air, soft and sincere, and I felt a warmth spread through me, a feeling of rightness, as if everything in my life had led to this moment. But it wasn't just the romantic moments that made our love real. It was the way he was there for me in the difficult times, the way he held me when I felt overwhelmed, the way he listened when I needed to talk about the pain I had buried for so long. He was patient, understanding, never pushing me to move faster than I was ready. He knew that healing wasn't a straight path, that some days were harder than others, and he was there for all of it, steady and unwavering. Eventually, we decided to share our happiness with our friends. We planned a small gathering, inviting the people who had been there for us through everything, the ones who had seen us at our lowest and had celebrated with us at our highest. It was a cozy evening, filled with laughter and warmth, a reminder of how far we had come. Our friends toasted to our love, their cheers and well wishes filling the room. I looked around, seeing the joy in their eyes, feeling the love that surrounded us, and I knew that I had found my home, not just in a place, but in a person. Now, my days are filled with a quiet happiness that I had once thought was impossible. Trey and I talk about the future, about the life we want to build together. We dream of a little house by the sea, of mornings spent walking along the shore, of filling our lives with love and laughter. We talk about adopting a dog, maybe two, of building a garden, of creating a home that is filled with warmth and peace. Looking back, I see the journey that brought me here, the heartbreak, the betrayal, the pain that nearly broke me. I see how each step, each moment of sorrow and healing led me to where I am now. And I am grateful, not just for the love I have found, but for the strength I discovered within myself. This journey taught me that life can be messy and unpredictable, but it can also be beautiful and full of hope. To anyone who has walked through heartbreak, who has felt the weight of betrayal, and wondered if they would ever feel whole again, I want to say this: there is light on the other side. There is love that is kind, that is patient, that is real. You don't have to settle for less. You don't have to hold on to pain. Let go, embrace the unknown, and trust that something beautiful is waiting for you. As Trey and I sat there, wrapped in the warmth of the sunset, I thought about how much my life had changed. I thought about the girl I was just a few years ago, the one who had believed her world would always be colored by shadows of pain and regret. I wanted to reach back to that version of myself, to tell her she was stronger than she knew, that brighter days were waiting. I wanted her to know that life would surprise her, that she would find love again, not just with another person, but within herself. Our journey together was filled with small rituals and big dreams. Every Friday, we'd go to the farmer's market, walking hand in hand through the aisles, picking out fresh flowers, seasonal fruits, and ingredients for our weekend cooking experiments. We built a library together, filling it with books that had shaped us, stories that spoke to the pieces of ourselves we kept hidden from the world. Trey introduced me to novels he'd loved as a kid, stories that took me back to simpler times, and I shared with him the poetry that had comforted me in the silent hours of the night. Our lives became interwoven with these memories, these quiet moments of intimacy that for the first time felt like they were truly mine. On lazy Sunday mornings, we would sit on the porch with our coffee, wrapped in blankets, watching the world wake up around us. The small town was still and peaceful, with birds singing softly in the trees, neighbors waving as they passed by on their morning walks. There was something so deeply grounding in those mornings, something that reminded me of what I had longed for during the hardest days of my life. Peace, simplicity, love that didn't ask me to be anything other than myself. In the spring, we started a garden together. We spent weekends digging in the soil, planting seeds, dreaming of the day our little plot of earth would be filled with flowers, herbs, and vegetables. Trey taught me about the different plants, his hands careful as he worked the earth, his voice filled with a gentle excitement. There was something healing in the act of planting, of watching something grow from the ground up, knowing that it would take time and care, that it would be worth the wait. Each little sprout felt like a symbol of our journey, of the life we were building together, of the love that had taken root between us. As we nurtured our garden, our plans for the future took shape too. We began to dream of bigger things, of a life together that extended far beyond the present. We talked about traveling the world, of visiting places we'd only read about in books. We made lists of cities and countries, of mountains to climb and oceans to see, promising that one day we would make these dreams a reality. We started saving, setting aside money for our future adventures, filling a little glass jar with spare change, each coin a symbol of the promises we were making to each other. But it was more than just plans and dreams. It was the quiet, unspoken commitment we made to be each other's home, to be the safe place we had both been searching for. Trey was my harbor, the calm in the storm, the laughter that filled my days with light. With him, I learned that love wasn't supposed to hurt. It was meant to heal, to uplift, to make you feel like the best version of yourself. And as time went on, I found myself letting go of the past, not just the pain, but the fear of it returning. I learned to trust again, to believe in the goodness of life, in the power of love to renew, to restore. I was no longer defined by what I had lost, but by the strength I had found, the love I had gained. One evening, as we sat together watching the stars, Trey turned to me and took my hand, his eyes reflecting the endless sky. "You're my forever," he whispered, his voice soft and sure. In that moment, I felt a peace that settled deep within my soul, a knowing that this was what I had been searching for all along. Today, I wake up each day with gratitude in my heart, with love filling the spaces that had once felt empty. My life may not be perfect, but it is beautifully mine, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. I am surrounded by the kind of love that doesn't need grand gestures to prove its worth. It is there in every smile, every whispered "I love you," every quiet moment shared in the early hours of the morning. And as I look to the future, I know that whatever comes our way, we will face it together, our love strong enough to weather any storm. To anyone who has known heartbreak, who has felt the depths of sorrow and wondered if they would ever find light again, I offer this. Believe in the power of second chances. Trust that life has a way of bringing beauty from the broken pieces. I am living proof that it is never too late to start over, to find love, and to build a life that fills your heart with joy. And as Trey and I sit here, wrapped in the warmth of each other's embrace, I know, without a doubt, that I am finally home.